So this is our 3-month meeting, and we can perhaps compare notes on what we've distilled from our experience over the last 3 months, but maybe even reflecting back on what happened prior to that. So I suppose I'm thinking that our focus might be less on the detail of what we've done and more on what has come out of that, how it's informed our thinking and so on. So there were the prompt questions that Norman sent out, but I think before that, I think we have Glyn about to join us. So before we, hello, Glyn.
Hi, Glenn. Hi, Glenn.
How are you? Okay. You're on mute, I think, so unless you mean to be.
Ray, continue. I'm fine. Thank you.
Good. So, as I said, there's our reflections, there's what we've distilled from what happened in the previous months, but then the last 3 months, because we promised ourselves that we give ourselves time to do that. And that's what the point of this meeting is, for us to share some of those thoughts. But Norman, I think you wanted to contextualize that for us and help us to get into that discussion.
Yeah, just a couple of pictures. Okay, yeah, so you're all familiar with this picture. And we framed our Pathways to Sustainable Future around the idea of that we are each making our own way into this future that we all want to achieve. So the pathway idea is that there are many, many different pathways, and it's clearly a journey. And we began this process back in March, I think it was. We all agreed that we would focus on nature, environment, or sustainability in some way. And we picked our focus, and then we made a start on it. And some people made quite a lot of progress, other people less progress. And as we came to the end of it and we had our final discussion, I think it was Glyn who suggested we might come back after 3 months and 6 months to reflect on what has happened in the intervening period. And we haven't done that before in one of these inquiries, and it seems like a really good thing to try and do. So that's, if you like, the context for what we're trying tonight. Oops, sorry. And so we posed the 3 questions. They're going to be, if you like, the focus for reflection. What effects of the actions we undertook to help nature, environment, sustainability had on us or our immediate environments over the last 3 months? And then have things in our personal life interfered in any way with what our intentions might have been, so that, if you like, honors the fact that we all lead very complex lives and things happen, not only to us, but to the people who are close to us. And they can, in a sense, inhibit or maybe create new opportunities that we hadn't imagined. So they can work in both sorts of ways. And then the third question is focused on looking ahead. And based on what we have undertaken so far and what we've seen happen, are there things that we might carry forward with us? And in talking to Melissa and Jenny about this, we could imagine 3 or 4 scenarios, depending on what has happened to us since then. The first is that our experience and new awareness, beliefs and knowledge that we got, knowledge and skills, have had little or no influence on anything we've done in the last few months. Hopefully that's not the case, but that is a potential scenario. The second scenario is that past experiences and the effects, combined with new awareness and maybe reinforced beliefs and knowledge and skills, are influencing us in subtle ways. But they're still important to us. They mean things to us. But we can't finger point any direct relationship with what we did in our inquiry and what has emerged since then. And then the third scenario is that what we did in our inquiry has had a significant influence on our subsequent behaviors. Either we've carried on doing things that are aligned to that, or maybe we've started on entirely new lines of inquiry. And then maybe something which is a combination of those, that past experiences and the effects combined with new awareness provide a foundation on which to grow new intentions. But things in life have not necessarily got in the way, but they've reshaped what it is that we're trying to do. So that's if you like, an interference of life. So today's discussion, we're going to, and Melissa's going to lead the discussion in two parts. Firstly, try and summarize very briefly what has happened to us in the last few months. And out of that, try and emphasize, draw out something which is an insight. Maybe it's an entirely new way of thinking about things, or it could just be a reinforcement or something subtly different. And then, if we have time towards the end, look at inner development as an idea, using the inner development goals as a framework to sort of try and see how we have either gained or developed any of those aspects of the inner development goals as a result of what we've been doing. So that's by way of just introducing what this session's about. And I'm going to hand back to Melissa now.
Okay, thank you, Norman. So I've been emphasizing, I suppose, distilling, and Norman's been talking about insights. I suppose we're actually trying to prompt reflection on what we've learned, what's changed, what's happened, and so on. So I hope that you found those questions helpful in maybe focusing us on those sorts of things, because it seems a long time ago since our last meeting, and it seems no time at all. It's very peculiar. I don't know whether you've felt that. It seems a long time since Christmas and New Year, which for us was quite a big thing, and it seems to be a long time ago. It isn't at all, but it's weird how time is. Oh, that was very nice, Jenny. I've not had that happen in a Zoom meeting before, so it was a new. Save that for Valentine's Day. I think we should do one then. Sorry. I'm monitoring all of your faces, and I was immediately drawn to that. So anyway, so what we're now doing is placing ourselves, standing in a new year, looking back on really what we did over the previous year. Are there any kind of immediate things that people thought? Would someone like to start by offering something that they distilled from all those months of action and thinking and opportunities? Ross, yes, please start.
I know I said I didn't really have anything terribly exciting to offer, but you know, just reflecting on those headings and the different categories that we had up on the screen there prompted me to realize that actually I've become more aware of and more active in making use of things like disposal of stuff that we don't want anymore, recycling, passing on, and so on. And I mean, there are pros and cons with it. They're very good round here. We have a waste bin collection and a general rubbish bin collection, and they're pretty regular. But if you're not careful with putting the tops on these things, then urban foxes come and help themselves and create a hell of a mess out there. So just being aware of the fact that then, you know, nature that I've always associated with the countryside and practically ruled out from the suburbs is still there, still doing things. Also, it's emerged that there are a lot more opportunities for recycling than I'd really appreciated before. For example, in a post-Christmas clear out of unwanted stuff or stuff that had been stored in the loft for many years, there was too much to carry round to the charity shops, and finding out which charity shops welcome stuff and which ones are a bit more particular about what they want to have. And so the actual amount of clutter in the house has been reduced enormously. And the other thing is that I've become a little bit more active in putting out stuff that birds like to eat. Actually, you know, approved stuff as opposed to the old turkey bones that my parents used to throw out into the back garden when I was a kid, and seagulls would try and carry the entire thing away. And funnily enough, just this afternoon, my wife Nettie shouted to me when I was doing something else in the house, "I've just seen a goldfinch in the garden. I haven't seen one for ages." So little things like that, you know, continuing to make the environment friendly to other creatures and to make one's own personal environment as slimmed down as it can be for a whole range of reasons.
So that sounds like things have opened up for you. You've seen things, opportunities for recycling and so on. And
Yes.
also it's given you a level of pleasure, appreciation, and all of that.
It is so satisfying. I mean, I never thought it would be. It sounds a bit pathetic, really, but yeah, the fun, you know, staggering round the corner to a charity shop under the weight of stuff and them saying, "Oh, yes, that's lovely. Thank you very much." And it's gone and they've got it. And, you know, something good is likely to happen.
Well, that sounds like a nice start. I think Jenny was next.
Thank you. Apologies. I thought I'd turn my camera off. Yes, I would like to really just take up your first point about having seen the reflections of both Melissa and Norman and myself. There seems to be a commonality between us, and maybe it's emerging across the whole group now, that once you've been sensitized, you can't be desensitized. And so there is a whole change in mindset. I find myself too. Perhaps it's that we see opportunities that we didn't see before.
Yeah.
And as you say, they can be fairly minor scale, but every little drop in the ocean, if we could get a movement going that way, would be a help.
Yes, that's very much what Russ was talking about, wasn't it? Seeing opportunities.
Yeah.
Norman.
Yeah, and Russ, you mentioned your dear wife, and I wondered to what extent you have influenced her. I mean, are you sort of doing things with one mind in this sense?
I think I've influenced her a bit more on the looking out of the window and seeing if there are any birds around down there. And she has definitely had an influence on me by working out what sort of junk has to go where when the opportunity arises. So yeah, she's very well organized with that. I have to keep checking, and I sometimes say, "Do they really want this stuff?" She says, "Oh yeah, they want it."
So collaboration there.
Collaboration, yes.
Great. Okay, that's a nice positive start. Would someone else, has it sparked anything for anybody else? Parallels or contrast or? If Casalina, yes.
Well, I've also developed like self-awareness, but environment awareness regarding separation of garbage and trash and everything, but also I've learned and I have experienced the possibility to educate our school community towards that. So we've been working in this committee and we've seen how it has evolved, like the consciousness towards the environment, and also like the self-consciousness of I need to separate this way, not only for me, but for others.
Yes.
And for living things.
And do you think in your school community that people are doing this because they're being asked to do it, or do you think that self-awareness is developing in members of the community?
I think it has evolved from something I have to do because I was told, or because everybody's doing it, or because we're talking about it. But since we are also working in social emotional skills, like they've been developed in classes, workshops, and everything, they kind of unconsciously connect
Mhm.
these different knowledges. Like, yes, I'm developing myself in social emotional, in social skills, self-awareness skills, and decision-making skills in other moments of my life, but I'm also being asked to take care of the environment through recycling and separating trash. So this like brain connections start
Mhm.
to happen first unconsciously and then probably with metacognition, I don't know how to say that,
Yes,
will like evolve more.
yes, great.
And sometimes they need to grow up a little bit to link those dots. But
Yes,
it is we are leaving the seed there. So
great. Jenny, yes.
Can I ask, Catalina, can I ask you a question? I was really interested in your reflections, that you'd got to the stage where you made up a song, and you all sang the song a couple of times. Is it every day or a week, so that the children internalize it? Whose idea was that?
in the environmental committee, we've been working on this like every week and everything, and we were searching about different strategies to actually make communities separate the trash. And one of those strategies was through jingles. So we asked our head girl, okay, come on, we need you do this for us. And she came up with a group of friends with this hit because it is a reggaeton song. So it's really famous like here in our city and country, but it has all this the separation. Do you want to hear it? I have it here. Hold on, I'll look for it.
Citizens songs, that sounds great for January, doesn't it?
Hold on a minute. I'll look for it. Wait up. Not in my cell phone. And it was twice a day. So like in the morning, and then during the first moment of recess. If you want, you can keep talking. I'm looking for it right
Okay,
now.
yes, of course. That sounds like a good idea. So that's interesting. Catalina's talked about her own self-awareness, but also is seeing that in others in the school community. Norman.
Yeah, so this idea of self-awareness, and I was interested in this connection to emotional development, and I wondered whether you and Russ, Catalina, see that coming through as a result of doing things, that we can learn about certain things, but unless we then do things, it might just remain sort of an abstract bit of knowledge. But it's in the doing that then you become more involved, more emotionally engaged, and want to do more, maybe.
Absolutely. They need to live it.
Live it, yes.
Yeah, I
You want to play the song, Catalina?
Yes, I have it here. Let me.
Plástico, vidrio, papel, cartón, orgánicos, metal, botellas, basura. Ayer boté las basuras en la caneca que no debía ser, porque hay muchos colores y no sabía qué hacer. Pero ahora en el colegio ya sé que es importante. Reciclar es lo más importante. Y aunque yo no sabía nada, Amachuyo me lo enseñó. Ahora sé que en el reclamo los desechos, reciclaje en la blanca, en la compostera orgánicos. Cuando corto un papelito, en la canasta blanca lo tiro. Y cuando me como un paquete de recreo, lo guardo y lo boto en la botellita de amor.
All in Spanish. I don't know if you understood a little bit.
not really for me, but the spirit I understood, and I'm sure it should either go for Eurovision, or maybe you should send that song to the UN, because we could all do with a song to take us through this. That was lovely. Thank you. Did you understand it, Norman?
No, not at all. But I like the tune, very catchy.
Yes.
But the point I was going to make was another way of involving people emotionally, to encourage that sort of creativity about that, and that then becomes much more memorable, I guess, whatever it is they're doing.
Yes, and what a fabulous idea to do that. That wasn't what you asked them to do. That was something they came up with. Is that right, Cassidy?
Yes. Yes, it was incredible. Like, girls, we were thinking about this. How can you help us? Boom, creativity
Yes.
came up. And they came up with this jingle, taped, played everything. We just needed to play it every day. They're incredibly creative. And since the head girl was leading it, then she has like this power in the
Yes.
little ones. So they start connect head girl, recycling, compost, organics, black, because we have like some different colors for the different
Yes.
of trash we need to separate. So black goes this way and recycling the other one. And I will love bottles that I've spoken to you about them before. They are involved in there as well.
Lovely.
And they know they go to social obras sociales, social like parks for people who doesn't have them.
Okay.
With the botellitas de amor, so that recycle and those packages, we send them to a foundation, and they, with that material, they create parks and playgrounds
I see.
for people that have no way to have them.
Okay. So that has kind of links really to what Russ was talking about, the kind of good cause as well as the good process of actually recycling or donate. Yes, yes, great. Thank you.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else have a song?
Or a poem?
Yes, yes, we could do everything. It's a cultural event tonight. Who'd like to say something next?
I don't mind
Valerie,
popping in
thank you.
there. Yeah, all of that is kind of elements of my own journey over the last few months, and I really have seen the value. I suppose when you are embedded in something that you're passionate about, to share that with a group like this, particularly when I kind of work solo on this, has been really interesting, both in terms of my own accountability, but in terms of the breadth of learning. But one of the things that's been recurring for me in the last number of months has been that notion of care, and how do we help people or get people or encourage people to care? Because it seems to me we want to change the things we care about. So it's kind of a really interesting, it's not something you can make people do, but yet looking at some of the projects some of our schools have engaged with, they've really leaned into looking more in the immediate environment. So I have one school who has created a young sustainable farmers group, which is quite unusual, for a group of teenagers to consider that and start looking at what's in their immediate environment, which is great. And another school who has convinced her principal to let her buy some chickens. So there's a whole piece in terms of sharing the information, but as I think Norman alluded to there, that action piece, what does that look like, and really exploring the immediacy and the environment, which we've been talking about for months, but things that can happen in a really immediate sense in your school community or your local community, and that it doesn't always need to be that big piece, but it's finding those things that those students care about, and that they, on a very personal level, and that ultimately the thing that makes you passionate and the thing that makes you want to change. So that's kind of, I suppose, and it's coming from the reflective piece as well. So that's kind of where I'm at in unpicking and unpacking that.
Lovely, thank you. But Jenny?
I think that's very interesting, and it comes back to the question of motivation that we've talked about an awful lot. But it reminds me of the difficulty we have had in the past of seeing the relevance of the SDGs at the personal level, and it appears that you have found a way there. You've been tapping into what is of immediate interest and given a perfect example, as with Catalina, of how we can actually make the SDGs manageable at a personal level, at the micro level.
Valerie, did you want to say something? No. I suppose the thing is, we're not telling people that they need to do something in relation to the SDGs. We're talking about something else, but it's backed up for us by the SDGs, yes, and it's picked up in terms of something someone cares about and can do. Yes, great. Lovely. Norman.
Can I sort of connect something that happened to me to what Valerie's just been saying? So we have a village WhatsApp forum, and there's about 100 and maybe 170 people on it at the moment. And I posted some pictures of fungi as it happened, and said, look, if you've spotted any, take a photograph and let me have them. And loads of people put pictures on this WhatsApp forum, but some people didn't like it. So they came in and they said, we don't want this on our community forum. But immediately other people came in and said, oh, yes, we do. So there was a bit of a tension in the village forum. And then someone came in and said, well, perhaps Norman can set up another WhatsApp group, which is what I did. And we got like 55 people immediately from the main forum. So what am I saying? I think going back to Valerie's point about caring, how do we encourage people to care about something? Well, I presume that the 50 odd people who came in cared about nature, because this is the focus for this forum. So it's a self-selected group, but within that, then you can grow awareness about all sorts of things. So going back to what Russ was saying about birds, yeah, I've sadly neglected our birds for many years. So I thought this year I'm going to have a go at trying to identify them, trying to find out more about them, trying to feed them. And that, in a sense, has become our project for this WhatsApp group now. So we found someone who's quite knowledgeable, is going to do like a Zoom broadcast on identifying common birds. We're going to join in with the RSPB National Survey of Birds at the end of the month, and trying to get people just to post their photographs of birds that take in the garden. So it's sort of raising collective self-awareness, and everybody can help everybody else raise awareness about these things. So I think so going back to Valerie's question, how do we encourage people to care about something? I think it's actually, when you look at all these different things that have happened quite spontaneously and quite in an unanticipated way, it's a lot of elements to it. But the net effect is to raise awareness and to, in a cooperative, collaborative way, help each other, if you like, become more caring about something. Anyway, that was my response to what Valerie was saying.
But I'm also interested, Norman, and you said that perhaps Norman can set up another WhatsApp group. So it's quite interesting that there was a kind of interpersonal thing going on there. It doesn't sound as though it was suggested that there should be set up a separate group. It was Norman set up. So
no, it's all about relationships. You're absolutely right. And because I'm a member of a small community, I'm a trustee of a small community charity, which is for nature, environment, sustainability. People know me in that respect. So yeah, it's not starting with a blank sheet of paper. I am known within the community for someone who's interested in nature. Yeah.
Yes, it's part of your identity in that community.
Yeah.
Jenny.
I'm just drawing parallels here with Catalina, between Catalina and Norman. In both cases, and again in Valerie's case as well, you had a degree of status within the community. I'm wondering how much that is important to galvanizing people into action.
Yeah, I think with all these things, you have to earn your spurs, as it were. You sort of have to show people that you care yourself about these things. And that's obviously through actions. Anyone can talk about things, but if you actually do things, that then people can see that you actually believe in these things and you're willing to put time and effort into doing them. Then, so I think that's status comes from that source, I think, not from necessarily being in an authoritative position.
Yes, I've certainly wondered about status, because some of us have worked in a context in which there is some kind of formal status, and others of us have worked in a much wilder environment where perhaps different things are possible. I suppose that's what I'm thinking about. Sometimes I've been envious of people who have a school or a setting or a course or something in which they're able to act. But that's interesting. What you're saying, Norman, it isn't necessarily power, but it's some kind of status or identity, I think, as well. So Janet and Glyn, sorry, Jenny, were you saying something about that?
I was just going to say, well, what it is really is leading by example, isn't it? Modeling.
Yes.
And besides that, for example, in the position or the role I have, that is a directive role, I have the opportunity to make it up to the strategy of the school, like to bring that to the strategy in order to be like a line to follow from the community. So if I have that self-awareness and I have it clear, then I can start working on it, talking about it, and actually take it up to the school strategy. So I think it's important to know how to manage our roles and how we like pop it up.
Okay. Yes, I agree, Jenny, about modeling, but I don't know that you have to be the expert. You could be modeling being curious.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting you have to be the font of all knowledge. No, I agree with you. Yes, but it's the enthusiasm that you're exuding that somehow it transmits to others.
Yes. So, Glyn, you came in later, so I'll give you.
Yeah, so I'll let Janet go first because she was on time. She was punctual.
Yes.
No. Okay, I guess I'm changing tactics a little bit. I'm thinking about what's happened over the past few months, and one of the things that I've been doing is, if you remember, I was growing things in the summer, and one of the things that really took off this year for some reason were the blackcurrant. So what I did in the fall was make blackcurrant jam. I'd hoped to get a bunch of tomatoes, but I didn't. I found them on sale at the grocery store. So I bought a bushel of tomatoes. So I started making sauce. So I made tomato sauce. I made salsa. I made, years ago, I went to a craft fair and they had pickled beetroot in the shape of hearts. Like they got a heart cutter and cut out the those, and they called them heartbeats. Well, I thought this was a fantastic idea. So I did that. So all my Christmas presents were made by me. So I gave a lot of those out. So I was pleased I did that. And I'm actually now getting comments about the blackcurrant jam, which seemed to have hit a chord. So that was great. And kind of on that tact, I've been trying to, my husband and I, we've been trying to eat more at home. That's been helped a little bit because my daughter came home from South Korea this Christmas. And she wanted all like homemade food. So all her favorites that they can't do in South Korea. Apparently in South Korea, you're pretty rich if you have an oven. Most people just have a hob, or she's got an air dryer, an air fryer, and a toaster oven. So that's kind of helped staying at home. The other thing, and on what Ross was saying, was she had a lot of stuff still at the house. So she said, just get rid of it. So I've been packing up books and clothes and taking them to charity shops. So that's been really good because we're actually getting a spare room back. But I think also good because she also had a lot of like university books, and I think I'm in a university town, so anything that students can get for courses that don't cost the earth, I think is a good thing. So yeah, so that kind of thing we've been doing. So recycling a bit. One of the things that had come out of my project was the lack of a mind-body connection I seem to have. I had a bit of conversation with Norman about this. So I've been trying to look into that and finding out what does that mean and how am I going to rectify it. So yeah, I think that's something I'm still working on. And yeah, I think that's it. If anybody has any questions.
I was touched by your daughter wanting all her favorites. I mean, that's a kind of mind-body connection, isn't it? It's a connection with home and things she's not been able to have, and to come back for those memories and connection of being at home, even though maybe her home is somewhere else at the moment, but the home she grew up with, the food she grew up with, that emotional connection, that's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, that comes up a lot at festivities, doesn't it? Whatever the festivities are, that people think about the things they're used to and what makes the festive meal, or if there is a festive meal. That sounds lovely.
Yeah, she's all about food. She ended up cooking the Christmas dinner.
Excellent.
Well, that was great. I had no idea, but I was going to put something on. She said, no, I'll do that. And then we went down to see my dad, who does his Brussels sprouts in white sauce with chestnuts. And we were taking them somewhere. And Cassie doesn't even like that. But she went down and she just wanted to be with her granddad. So, yeah, so that worked out. Yeah, she loved it.
Great. I don't know whether others had opportunities, if you had festivities over these past months, for those kinds of connections to be made. I certainly had lots of discussions about things to do with Christmas for us, which were brought up echoes of childhood Christmases and nice memories and bad memories as well. So, I mean, the good and the bad of it all. But it's a time in which those kinds of traditions, they may be family traditions, come out, don't they? So. Lovely.
Yeah, I enjoyed it because it kind of forced everybody to get together. By that, I mean, I've got a sister and a nephew in the States. And I quite often, if I go down there, my sister will come over and make an effort. But I haven't seen my nephew since I got married in 2019. So it forced the cousins to get together and their kids. And we ended up having a really big group photo taken. So I like that kind of thing, getting everybody together. And then, of course, all the memories start coming out. Remember this, remember that, and making new ones with the new great nephews and nieces. Oh, sounds like I'm old. But yeah, it was good.
And were you able to share your produce that you created with that wider family?
Yeah, I gave everybody some various different things. They all got a pot of jam, although I didn't give my sister that because she quite often does that. But I gave her some salsa and tomato sauce. So it's spaghetti sauce, we call it here. So yeah, they all had that. And I think I gave everybody the salsa as well, and the heartbeats. My dad is a huge beetroot fan. So I kind of did it for him when I saw the heartbeats in the first place. And I thought, no, I got to get that to my dad. So, yeah.
So you shared your project, or at least the outcome of what you'd been doing in the summer, with a much wider family group.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Glyn, are you ready to share
fine.
with us? Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. You've prompted me, along with many of the other things that others here have mentioned, one of the things that just struck me in what was being talked about learning, and I was really delighted, Catalina, to hear the song. It was superb, because that will stay with the students you have there, not just for a few months, but actually for the rest of their lives, because there is, as you probably know, through music, that connection that stays with us. We could all probably remember rhymes and songs from our childhood. So it's that embeddedness of the repetition too is important. I'm surprised that some of the people at your meeting, Norman, didn't want to participate, because you're such a fun guy. But sorry about that. I suppose there wasn't much room to develop things in your meeting. However, what Janet mentioned about the black currants, you said, Janet? Yeah. Just last week, I was listening to a broadcast on Radio 4, and I'm going to send it to be the connection, so that you can all listen in your own time to this podcast. And there was somebody talking about inflammation, which happens a lot for people of a certain generation. And all berries, bar none, are good for us throughout our lives. And importantly, for people of a certain age, they actually have greater impact, because they reduce what is called senescence, or the growing old process. So that's something just to take away. And the reason I mention that is that the particular professor, I think she was called Janet Lord, who was on the program with a guy called Dr. Michael Mosley, gave 5 tips, which are important not only for people of a certain life experience extent, but I think are important to embed early on in life. And those are surprised. I'll just briefly mention what they are. Don't sit for a long time. This is about being active. And they said more than an hour. So if you sit more than an hour, it's really not good for you. So that's something that schools don't, and universities are terrible at. They're forcing students to sit, and we don't do enough for standing up and moving about. Calorie restriction or intermittent fasting has been found to be beneficial for everyone. And this is research and science. Make time to release stress, or for stress relief. Eat berries as part of a Mediterranean plus diet. And the most important one is to exercise. And none of us will be surprised by that. But I thought that was worth sharing, because it does relate actually not only to how we relate to our own needs, but it relates to how much we eat, for example, and how much and what we eat, and the consequences of what we, and also what with the birds, because the birds particularly like berries too. In fact, they strip my bushes quicker than I could when the harvest was ready. So that's interesting. So knowing that it's good for the birds, and I just wonder, and this is to do with the learning, and is there a real, this is a question that came about as a result of the conversations we've had so far. is there a reluctance on people's parts that not to want to know more, because once they know it, they can't not know it, and if they then are expected to take action on it? So that to me seems quite important, because if the message, which I believe is important, is vital, it is actually vital, it's important to be able to persuade people. And you can only persuade people by your own actions, I think, and that's been said before by others here, but also by knowledge. So I think there is a need to have knowledge, or to find those who have the knowledge to support the reasons why people should change their behavior. I think one of the first lessons I learned when I was trained to become a teacher was that one of the definitions of learning is that learning leads to a change in behavior. If it doesn't lead to a change in behavior, you've not learned. As for the recycling, Russ, thank you for reminding me of doing that. And we're very lucky here in the Czech Republic, because they collect almost everything in separate containers, even down to, you know, the cartons that you can get milk and other nutty type. They're not allowed to call them milk anymore. Even those are separately collected. So even tin cans and foil, even the metal foil, all of that separately, and containers in almost every community. It's really impressive. So there are good examples, but in terms of something, I think Janet mentioned Christmas, and Melissa, you also mentioned it. I actually decided that it might be this year for Christmas, I would, my children are mature now. My grandchildren, I don't know what to buy for them, because it's a world beyond me. So I transferred money to my children, and I thought, actually, that's not a bad thing to do. There was no wrapping, so there's no use of paper. There was no transport of anything. Nothing needed to be flown by air. It just seemed to me that actually it's quite friendly to the environment, not necessarily to have all this stuff that doesn't necessarily get recycled. I mean, bits of Christmas crackers, how do you recycle those? That's enough from me.
Well, some interesting thoughts there that you've pulled threads from what others have said. So that was an interesting set of reflections on this meeting. So Jenny, yes, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to come back on what Glyn just said there. I appreciate what you're saying on the one hand, but isn't that a perfect example of how you've got to weigh up priorities? Because I could argue that a lot of pleasure is derived by the person giving the present, wrapping it and putting their love into it, and then pleasure, on the other hand, by the person receiving it.
I have to say that every time I hear the word pleasure, the words of Robert Burns come into my head. But pleasures are like poppies spread. You seize the flower, the bloom is dead. It's ode to a mouse. It's ode to a louse. Ode to a louse.
Very timely. We're nearly at Burns night.
I don't disagree with you that if it gives people pleasure, but it is giving people pleasure the purpose of this project. One hopes that they get pleasure from doing it and being part of it, and also having an impact on the co-natural elements of the world.
Norman,
I just wanted to let Glyn know that I'm adopting his restricted calorie idea, and I've got a knee operation in early February. So only about just over a week ago, I decided to go down to 1 meal a day, and it's working out okay. I feel a lot better for it, and I think I can sustain it until after the operation at least, maybe beyond. It could be a habit. I think if you do it 4 weeks, then you're probably into a habit forming thing.
Russ, are you volunteering 1 meal a day as well?
Well, no, I'm very interested in it. I'm just wondering how many courses there are in Norman's 1 meal a day, and how long it takes him to eat it.
Fairly quick, Russ. One course.
But Jenny might point out that there is a lot.
I'm surprised at how easy it is. I'm finding it. It's like, as long as I'm busy, I think if I'm sitting twiddling my thumbs, it becomes an issue. But if I keep myself busy, I can go. I went for 28 hours one day, and it didn't really feel.
But I was putting words into Jenny's mouth here, which is that the social aspect of eating a meal together is also very important. And someone who only has a meal.
My wife and I have a cup of coffee. We have a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or something. Yeah.
But actually, I remember when my children were young that actually meal times were a good place to have a discussion, and a discussion about food is actually quite integral to some of the things we've been working on. And lots of people have talked about food one way or another, haven't they, in their projects or in our meeting. Did you want to add something, Norman or Jenny, about from your own reflections? Because obviously we shared each other's, so we have a bit of an inkling of each other's insights over the last few months. Did you want to say something more? Jenny, yes.
You want me just to say something briefly, because I'm going to have to go shortly, I'm afraid. I found, as I said earlier, that once you've learnt something, you can't unlearn it. And therefore, I had internalized the process of observing and relating to nature and so on. Ironically, one of the questions was asking almost about serendipitous opportunities to learn. I said originally that I deliberately tried to avoid doing anything which was in my comfort zone, which of course is in the line of education. Yeah, through some tortuous process that I won't go into, we have been given the opportunity to do some teaching in Brunei, or not teaching necessarily, but staff development for those who are teaching already. And so I almost seem to have come full circle back to where I was trying to avoid through what we were doing in our original projects.
But maybe that's one of those opportunities that you saw. Maybe you're a different person doing those staff development opportunities, running those things, than you might have been before.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yes.
Norman, was there something more you wanted to add about your insight?
No, I think we've sort of covered them. In terms of my own experience, it's been definitely an unfolding thing, that I have a commitment to particularly to nature, and things just seem to present themselves. I suppose if it's like the Glyn's openness, willingness to accept knowledge and appreciate knowledge that you don't have, and then it becoming troublesome and doing something with it. I think if you care enough about something, then there is inherently there a commitment to continue doing things. And some of them may be planned, but a lot of them aren't necessarily planned. And we might just enter a situation where we get nudged, and that nudge can have quite profound consequences in what you then take on. So it happened to me in the sense that I participated in a course that was given by Gaia Education, and part of that course I was using the work I've been doing within our inquiry, and I sort of got nudged through a practical exercise into trying to think in a bigger way about what I've been doing, and that nudging led eventually to various things got connected up to a bid for a grant for creating not only a local parish biodiversity line, but something which runs across 4 parishes called a biodiversity park. Now, whether it ever happens or not, you know, it may not happen, but the nudge I got from participating in this course quite unexpectedly involved me now in putting forward a bid for a grant and talking to parish councils and Surrey Wildlife Trust and various things that I had no intention of doing back in October. It just happened because of this set of circumstances. So you can't predict where things will take you when you get these nudges. I suppose that's my insight.
I also wonder, because something that I found was that I was sensitized to feedback about, well, I'd hardly call it impact, but I found it interesting when my children or my grandchildren said something to me that made me feel that I had had an impact on them. One of my daughters persuaded me to do something by saying, but Mum, it's much more sustainable doing this. Now, that's not a language that she might have used to persuade me before. And she's picked up, and this is what I was thinking about with identity, that maybe a bit of my identity now is to do with I'm doing these kinds of things and I'm interested in these kinds of arguments and so on. Norman, you're quiet, your mic's on. Not on, sorry.
I was waving to Catalina because she just said she's about to go in.
Oh, sorry. The Catalina, yeah, I think we're probably running tight on time. That was lovely to have your contribution today. Bye-bye. I think we're probably running out of time really now, because we've had such a lot of vivid examples, and we've been taken all around the world and to all sorts of different contexts for these reflections and insights. Did you want to say something, Norman?
Only that I think if we set that set of prompts out, if people were prepared to provide some written feedback, then I think Jenny's agreed that she would collate them, and we might see then new patterns emerging from the information. So it would be really useful if people had the time to do it, to actually attempt that exercise.
Do you have a date for that? Did I miss the date for that return?
No, there was no date, but Jenny, how would that fit in with your what you have to do?
It fits in with me, but I don't want to pressurize anyone. So whenever you are able to get it back to me, my next venture abroad is the late March, so I'm around until then.
Agenda item 6, date of next meeting. It seems.
Should we say 2 weeks as a target? I mean, if people can't meet it, then that's you know.
Sorry, 2 weeks until
we send our responses.
Yes, but I think Glyn was talking about another meeting, and I was thinking 2 weeks was a little short.
Well, Glyn suggested 6 months, which I thought was a good idea. So after 6 months, that takes us where to?
April.
March, April, yeah.
So maybe towards the end of April. There's busy times in April for lots of people, but maybe we can come up with a suggested date and see how people respond to that. Does that sound doable?
I know Easter is early this year because we're away late March into April, and I think the early part of that month may be difficult for people.
Yes, so if we make it later in April, so yeah, anyway, we can try for a date. Anyway, keep up the good work, everybody, and I look forward to hearing what everybody has to say in April. That'll be a different set of weather for us to share at the start of the meeting.
And thank you all for making what is said to be the most difficult day for most people in the world.
Mm,
Blue
Such a
Monday.
pleasant experience.
mm, mm.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Well, we all did that. Well done us. Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody. Okay.
Thank
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.